All right, ready to dive in. We're tackling Rich Dad, Poor Dad today.
Love it. A classic.
It's been on my list forever, and I get why people rave about it. It's full of those aha moments about money.
Totally.
But it's a bit of a beast to get through, right?
Yeah, it's a longer one.
So think of this as your Rich Dad, Poor Dad cheat sheet. We're distilling the good stuff, the stuff that can actually change how you think about building wealth.
Smart move. Coming to us for the key takeaways. This book is seriously legendary in the personal finance world. And there's a reason it's still so popular after all these years.
What is it about this book? Why has it resonated with so many people, do you think?
Kiyosaki really hit on something timeless about money. Like how to break free from those old school money rules we're all taught growing up.
It's like he's challenging the system in a
Yeah.
way. So let's break it down. The book centers on this rich dad versus poor dad idea, right? Two totally different perspectives on money.
Right. It's the core concept.
Give us the lowdown. Who are these dads and what's the story?
So Kiyosaki's book is all about the financial lessons he learned from two father figures in his life. First, there's his own father, the poor dad.
Okay.
He represents that traditional path so many of us are familiar with. Get good grades, go to college, get a secure job, that kind of thing.
The familiar path for sure.
Then there's his friend's dad, the rich dad, a high school dropout who builds a business empire.
That's quite a contrast.
Totally. And here's where it gets interesting. Kiyosaki starts learning from this rich dad when he's only 9 years old.
9 years old. Wow. I can barely remember what I was learning at 9, let alone life-changing financial advice. What was so different? Like, how did these dads view money differently?
Well, the poor dad, he was all about working for money, prioritizing job security and a steady paycheck above all else.
Yeah, the classic get a good job advice.
Exactly. But the rich dad, he was all about making money work for him. He was focused on acquiring assets, things that put money in your pocket.
Instead of just trading time for money, right?
Exactly. And get this, he saw things like houses as liabilities, which, kind of blows your mind the first time you read it.
A house, a liability. I think we need to unpack that one. Think about your biggest expense is your mortgage. Could
Yeah.
that be considered a liability in Kiyosaki's framework?
It's the perfect example of how Rich Dad, Poor Dad really flips the script on how we think about money. We're conditioned to believe that owning a house is this ultimate goal, the sign of success.
Right, the American dream and all that.
Exactly. But Kiyosaki asks us to really think critically. If you're drowning in a mortgage and endless home expenses, is it truly an asset? Or is it quietly draining your finances, preventing you from building real wealth?
It's like he's shifting your entire perspective.
He is. He wants us to reevaluate everything.
So how do we apply this asset versus liability thinking to our own lives? Where do we even start?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And that's where Kiyosaki's 6 core lessons come in. Each lesson kind of builds upon this foundation of thinking differently about money.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Hit me with lesson number 1.
Lesson 1 is all about flipping the script. It's not about working for money. It's about having your money work for you.
Okay, I like where this is going.
It's about generating passive income through investments, so you're not always trading time for dollars. This is where understanding assets becomes super important.
So give us some examples. What kind of assets are we talking about here?
Well, it could be stocks, real estate, businesses, those tax lien certificates Kiyosaki talks about. The key is to identify assets that align with your risk tolerance and your financial goals.
Because not all assets are created equal, right?
Exactly. Kiyosaki is a big advocate for real estate, but he also talks about building businesses that generate income even when you're not physically working.
Now that's the dream. But let's be real for a sec. Building assets usually takes money.
That's true.
It's easy to talk about stocks and real estate, but what if you're not exactly rolling in dough right now? How do you even get started?
That's where lesson 2 comes in. Mind your own business. And don't worry, it's not about being nosy or anything like that. It's about cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset, even if you have a 9-to-5 job.
So even with a traditional job, you can still be building something on the side.
Yes. Think side hustles, investments, anything that generates income outside your day job.
I love that. It's about creating multiple streams of income.
Exactly. And here's the best part. You don't need a fancy MBA or a ton of capital to start. Kiyosaki tells this great story about launching his first business at 90 years old, renting out comic books.
See, there you go, 9 years old. It proves you're never too young or too broke to start building your own financial future.
You got
That is seriously inspiring. But let's be honest, most schools aren't exactly pumping out 9-year-old entrepreneurs.
It's true.
How does financial literacy play into all of this? Where does that fit in?
You hit the nail on the head. Financial literacy is so important. And that's Kiyosaki's third lesson. He's all about it.
It's huge.
Yeah, like take control of your financial education. Because let's face it, most of us didn't learn this stuff in school.
No, not at all. It's like they send you out into the world with a diploma and no clue about budgeting or investing or even how taxes really work.
Totally. And that lack of knowledge, it can really come back to bite you later on.
Oh, yeah.
So Kiyosaki's like, take charge. Don't wait for someone to teach you this stuff.
Yeah.
Read books, take courses, find mentors. The resources are out there.
Yeah, just got to go for it.
And think about those assets we were talking about.
Right.
Becoming financially literate.
Mm-hmm.
That helps you actually identify those assets and acquire them.
It's like you're giving yourself a superpower.
Yes.
Okay, so this is where things get interesting and maybe a little controversial. Lesson 4 is the tax code advantage.
This is the one where Kiyosaki kind of throws everyone for a loop.
Yeah.
He dives into how the tax system, in a lot of ways, actually favors corporations and wealthier individuals.
Okay.
It's a really complex issue, sparks a lot of debate, but Kiyosaki's point is if you understand these nuances,
Yeah.
it can actually empower you to make smarter financial decisions.
So it's not about like finding loopholes or doing anything illegal, right? It's about educating yourself and then being strategic.
Yeah. 100%. It's like,
Yeah.
you got to understand the rules of the game if you want to play it well.
Right, exactly.
And Kiyosaki, he points out how corporations, they get certain tax advantages
Right.
that us regular folks just don't.
Right.
But if you understand how to leverage those advantages within the law,
Mm-hmm.
that can make a huge difference when it comes to building wealth over the long term.
It's like having a really, really good financial advisor in your back pocket.
Exactly.
Now, this next lesson, courage, knowledge, financial freedom, that one really speaks to me.
Yeah, it's a powerful one.
Can you unpack that a bit for us?
So it boils down to taking calculated risks.
Okay.
Kiyosaki's argument is that if you want to build wealth,
Yeah.
you got to be willing to venture outside your comfort zone a little bit,
Right.
challenge the norm, and sort of embrace uncertainty.
It's so easy to get stuck in that play it safe mentality, especially when it comes to money.
It is.
But like you're saying, sometimes you got to take a leap of faith.
Kiyosaki himself, he talks about how intimidating risk can be.
Mm.
And he actually shares this story about leaving his secure job to go pursue entrepreneurship.
Wow.
And his poor dad was totally baffled by it, but it was a calculated risk.
Yeah,
It was driven by the knowledge and skills he had, and ultimately it paid off for him.
that's huge. And that takes guts to break free from that traditional path, to bet on yourself like that.
Totally. It's definitely a theme in Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Stepping outside that comfort zone can lead to the biggest rewards.
Absolutely. So how does Kiyosaki's final lesson, work to learn, not just to earn, tie into all of this?
So this lesson, it's like he's flipping the script on this idea of specialization that we're all taught. Kiyosaki is a big believer that having a diverse skill set
Mm.
and a wide range of knowledge,
Yeah.
that's way more valuable in the entrepreneurial world.
Interesting.
So instead of just climbing the corporate ladder in one specific field, it's about being adaptable,
Right.
spotting opportunities,
Mhm.
being able to pivot when you need to.
Being well-rounded, kind of.
Exactly.
I like that a lot. It's like you're building your own mental pool box, right?
Yes.
With all these skills and knowledge you can pull from whenever you need them.
Exactly. And Kiyosaki, he actually talks about working in all these different departments of his rich dad's businesses.
Oh, wow.
So he wasn't just focused on one thing. He wanted to understand how everything worked together.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like being a student of life, in a way.
Totally. Always be curious, always be open to learning new things.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground here, but are there any common criticisms of Rich Dad, Poor Dad that we should touch on? Because I know it's a bit controversial.
It definitely is. It's sparked a lot of debate over the years.
What are some of the criticisms?
One of the biggest ones is that, Kiyosaki talks a lot about becoming an entrepreneur and an investor, but he doesn't really talk about social responsibility
Yeah.
or address things like income inequality,
It's not a very nuanced perspective in that sense.
right? And while he does mention philanthropy,
Hmm.
some people feel like it's not a big enough part of his message.
So it's not a perfect book by any means,
No book is.
but it definitely sparks a lot of important conversation.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of what's made it so impactful.
Yeah, and it's a great starting point, but like with anything else, you have to do your research.
Absolutely. Don't just take anyone's word for it.
Right, think for yourself.
Exactly.
And that's something I really appreciate about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It encourages you to question things, challenge conventional wisdom, think critically.
100%.
Hmm.
And ultimately, take control of your own financial future.
Exactly. So how do we take all this and apply it to our lives? If someone listening to this feeling super inspired, ready to take action, what's a good first step?
That's the question, right?
Yeah,
The good news is you don't need a ton of money or an MBA to start implementing these principles.
that's good to hear.
Start by taking a look at your own financial habits and beliefs.
Oh, okay.
Are you living paycheck to paycheck?
Hmm.
Are you afraid of taking risks?
Yeah.
Try to identify those ingrained habits or beliefs that might be holding you back.
It all starts with awareness, right? Like shining a light on those subconscious thought patterns that could be sabotaging our success.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
Once you figure out what those roadblocks are, you can start to dismantle them.
Yeah, love that. So maybe it's creating a budget for the first time, or maybe it's finally picking up that book on investing that's been sitting on your shelf.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to reach out for help, you know?
Yeah.
Find a mentor, connect with people who inspire you, who challenge you to think differently about money.
Because personal finance can feel really isolating sometimes, you know?
Just totally. And it doesn't have to be.
It's not about figuring it all out on your own. It's about like tapping into that collective wisdom.
100%. You're not alone on this journey. Think about it. Millions of people have found value in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And there are countless resources available to support you, whatever your goals are.
It's like Rich Dad, Poor Dad gives you the tools, but ultimately you are the architect of your own financial future.
Now you're getting it. It's about taking ownership,
Yes.
making informed decisions, and really shaping your financial destiny.
I love that. And who knows, maybe that first step, that little spark of inspiration,
Mm-hmm.
it could lead to extraordinary things down the line.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how one small decision can have a ripple effect, right?
Totally. It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
So true. Okay, before we wrap up, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today? Something that'll really stick with them.
You know, for me, it's this. Your financial future isn't set in stone.
I love that.
It's not about luck or circumstances you can't control. It's about the choices you make, the knowledge you gain, and the actions you take. Starting right now.
That is so empowering. It's like we're not just passengers along for the ride. We have the power to steer the ship.
Exactly.
But sometimes it's hard to even know where to start. So for our listener who's feeling inspired, ready to put these lessons into action, what's one small but impactful step they can take today?
Here's a little challenge. I want you to identify one belief you have about money that might be holding you back.
Okay, I like this.
It could be something like, I'm just bad with money, or investing is only for rich people.
Yeah.
Whatever that story is that you're telling yourself.
That inner critic.
Yes. Once you pinpoint it, spend a little time reflecting on it. Like, where did that belief come from? Has it been validated by your experiences, or is it just an outdated script that's no longer serving you?
It's like holding those limiting beliefs up to the light and seeing if they can withstand a little scrutiny.
Exactly. And once you bring those subconscious beliefs to the surface, you can start to challenge them. You can replace them with more empowering ones.
So powerful, because sometimes even small shifts in mindset can create huge transformations in our lives.
Absolutely. It all starts with that internal shift.
So it really is about taking control. Control of our thoughts, our beliefs, and ultimately our actions.
Yes. Rich Dad, Poor Dad gives us the tools, the inspiration, but we are the ones who have to put in the work.
We are the architects of our own financial futures. And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We explored those key lessons, unpacked some of the criticisms, and even gave our listeners some actionable steps to get started.
It's been a blast diving into Rich Dad, Poor Dad with you. It's such a thought-provoking book, and it sparked so many important conversations about money.
It really has. And to our amazing listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've gained some valuable insights and are feeling empowered to take control of your financial journey.
Remember, knowledge is power.
It absolutely is. And the journey of 1,000 miles or $1,000 starts with a single step. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep reaching for those financial dreams.